The year was 1967. Australia was still recovering from the end of the Second World War, and the Australian Chancellor at the time decided to take drastic steps to try and improve the Australian economy, similar to what FDR did in the USA. But you see, being the rowdy Australians that they were, a lot of them had a few issues with this, and when the government refused to accept their demands, they went out into the Australian wilderness and formed their own political faction, with the intent of taking over Australia by force. You see, it was around this time that emu riding became the Australian national sport, because in the year 1962, the official emu riding handbook, first edition, came out in Australia, stating the following. The most important step is getting the reins on. An emu's neck is very sensitive, so if you can get control of it, the emu will follow your movement. And so, let's just put this into perspective. Imagine you're an Australian National Guardsman. You're defending your village, just by yourself, the sun is setting, and you see a horde of emus with angry guys with guns on top of them charging your village. What are you gonna do? Absolutely nothing. You run. And so during the first few months of the war in 1968, the Australian government was powerless to stop these roaming hordes of emu riders. The Australian government had a real problem on their hands. They didn't want to accept these plans that the emu riders were giving them because they knew it would completely destroy the government and economy. And so the Chancellor decided they would just play on the defensive for as long as they could because he knew something that the riders didn't. Because it was during this year that the Emu Riding Handbook version 2 came out, and it contained some very important new information, including the fact that emus go absolutely crazy when they don't have food. And so, when the winter came, the entire front line for the bandits was completely obliterated when the emus ran out of food and started to destroy everything in their path. The anti-Australian government coalition was completely obliterated by the emus and was quickly finished off by the Australian military. And so then, it became a fight to stop these roaming bands of leaderless emus from destroying all the crops in Australia. And this was no easy task, as emus are very resistant. They run faster than jeeps, they can survive multiple shots from an LMG, they are a menace. And so after a few years of trying to take down these emus, the Australian government realized it was completely pointless and decided to set up a fence along the entire Australian continent to stop these emus. And over the decades, as the Australian economy came back to what it once was and emu controlling technology has increased, the fence is no longer needed as the emus have enough food to sustain themselves. And so the fence was repurposed to hold off dingoes and coyotes and other dangerous species. The Australian government and economy have remained stable since then, but it was truly an interesting time in our history. And that is the story of the Great Emu War. Thank you for listening. And if you'd like more history facts that sound true, remember to subscribe.